Hello and welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. My name is Christine Eck. I'm the director of the Center for Sacred Window Studies. It is such a pleasure to have Stephanie Pearce with us today. Stephanie is originally from Ontario, Canada. She's been living in Mexico, north of Mexico City. She is currently participating in our Conscious Postpartum Caregiver Program. She is an Ayurvedic coach, Kundalini Yoga instructor. She's an advocate for raising divine feminine consciousness on this planet. Her website is empoweredmama.com, and I'll put all of this in the notes for this episode. But Stephanie and I have been collaborating. She's been a huge inspiration to me, and our sort of flower that's blossomed out of this collaboration is really exploring the idea about choosing conscious postpartum care in life, but also as a professional path. This is something that is so hugely needed. And so Stephanie and I are here today as part of this larger project of hearing different voices on what it means to come to that understanding of, I need to be part of this movement. I need to be part of this change, and how that looks different for all of us. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for this conversation today.
Yeah, it's truly like such a gift to be connected through the work that we're doing with so many different people that I would otherwise not be able to meet. And you are one of those such people. So it's truly a pleasure. And I just really, I feel like we connected right away because I know that this work for you was part of a very personal, drawing from your own personal experiences. And so I guess, this is a very intimate topic, really, when we're thinking about how our own potential struggles have brought us to this work. And so I want to acknowledge that, and really honor you for being here today and being willing to share some of that with us. But, to begin this exploration and this sort of discovery into how it's different and unique for each of us, using your story as one of these really important messages to hear, what was it that sort of awakened the idea of conscious postpartum care, of postpartum care in general within you? What awoke in that for you?
So my story really began 18 years ago when I had my first child, and I was very young. There was no Facebook at the time. So I think at the time it was MySpace, and I didn't really have, because I was so young, my friends were still partying and connecting, and I was learning how to navigate motherhood. And it hit me quite hard how quickly your life changes in that moment when you become a mother. But this is all stuff that I can speak to in hindsight, right? And that's why I'm going to really love this conversation today, because with the experience that we have, and the struggles that we've been through, we can help mothers like me who were in that transition, feeling the overwhelm of that change, from a more heart-centered, compassionate perspective. So for me, because I didn't have access to information, really, I didn't know where to go looking for it. Social media was kind of just kicking off, so there were no groups or support groups that I could connect with. I didn't know what I was feeling. I was just extremely overwhelmed and anxious and angry And it was almost like I discovered another part of myself that I didn't like. And then 10 years later, I had my second. And because there was such a gap in between, I didn't anticipate I would experience the same emotions. I thought, okay, I'm 10 years older now. I have 10 years of experience in motherhood. I've got this. However, it happened again. And I never was diagnosed with postpartum depression. It never even occurred to me that it could be what the Western medicine would call postpartum depression. And then 2 years later, I had my youngest, and I have 3 children, 3 boys now. And same thing happened. I experienced the same overwhelm, the same anxiety, and the same darkness. And kind of like looking back now in hindsight, there was a lot of loneliness that I felt. I felt very unsupported and misunderstood. And it wasn't until I knew, like, after having my third baby, that would be my last pregnancy and my last baby. And I really wanted to make up for the time that I felt like I missed in anxiety, overwhelm, panic, and anger. And even when I look back now, like when I look back to that time, I don't remember a lot of it. I really don't. It's almost like I wanted to forget how horrible I felt and how horrible I was being. Like, it's almost like there's a lot of guilt that I'm trying to protect myself from. And that's a healing process that I'm working through even now. So when I discovered Kundalini Yoga, it was when my youngest was, I think, about a year old. I noticed something kind of shift in me. And that's really when I wanted to go down like the journey of spiritual awakening and healing. It's when I noticed that I had a choice to honor my feelings instead of run from them, and to actually work with my feelings. And I became very dedicated to the practice of Kundalini Yoga, so much so that I became a Kundalini Yoga instructor. I loved it so much. I loved how moving the energy through my body really felt, what's the word? Almost liberating. Like, learning how I could work with the energy in my body was very liberating. And I remember saying to my husband, all moms need to know how to do this, because I feel so much more clear. And I don't want to say I feel so much more in control, because control is something that can cause us a lot of suffering too. But I felt in control of how I could navigate my emotions. And I think that was a key piece. So moving down the path of Kundalini Yoga, I naturally learned about Ayurveda, and Ayurveda fascinated me because I realized that I could really create like a whole balanced, well-rounded system of healing, working with the energetics of Ayurveda, working with the physical aspects of Ayurveda, like the food and the elements that we put into our body. And so then I began studying Ayurveda. And when I started learning about women's health, that's when I knew that I wanted to work with mothers. And then I discovered the sacred window, and that's when I knew, like, these are the people that I have to work with. And I'm just so excited to share my knowledge and my story, and really create change to me, it's really about setting up the new world, like setting up the next generation for a much better experience than what I had. Because I feel like now, and I know that I'm not the only one, I know there's many mothers out there that are experiencing the same. I can't go back and fix those first few years of my children's lives. I can't go back and fix my experience, but I can be involved in the next, or the education of, and the change of that experience for others moving forward.
It's so beautiful because, the way that you experienced your path and your trajectory, there's so much self-love that comes along with being able to sit with our feelings and sit with our emotions and be comfortable with that, love ourselves through that. And I know there's so many things that I was sort of taking in and thinking about as I was listening to you, Stephanie, but I find it so beautiful. And I really resonate with my own version of that experience of being able to like look at the icky parts of what we've been through, or like our behavior based on how out of control we might have felt, or just not feeling happy with ourselves and kind of wanting to push that away and not really look at it. But then when we discover like a way to hold those parts of ourselves at the same time, there's so much healing that comes with that act. It's like the greatest act of self-love. And that is, I think, what we want others to feel too, without like being able to like skip over that moment of just wanting to not remember, or sort of feeling that guilt that you talked about earlier.
Yeah. And I think that I think that regardless, we all have to eventually go back at some point and face it, right? So if we run and hide from those feelings, eventually we'll be, as part of our healing path, we'll be triggered in ways throughout motherhood where we need to go back and honor what we went through. Because like you mentioned, it took a lot of self-love for me to do that. But had I had the awareness that I was actually committing an act of self-love, I likely would have done the work a lot faster. So because I wasn't aware that just going in and feeling that was actually a very healing piece for me, I had to experience it over and over again until I could finally accept that, hey, I love myself, and regardless of all the feelings and all the guilt that I might have, because I feel like I rushed through those first few months, or I don't remember those first few months, or, it's really just honoring the work that I was doing for myself. And filling those spaces with love and compassion. And I think that as a caregiver, it's really important to remember that that's really what we want to bring the mom back to, is learning how to hold herself and fill herself with fill those spaces, those dark spaces with love and compassion.
And I think to like pull back a little bit, how problematic is it that we have to create all of these buffers and be addressing all like this? We're talking about the beginning of life. We're talking about bringing new humans into this world. And I always come back to our greater purpose here, which is fixing the problem or addressing the problem that new families are not being taken care of at the most pivotal time in their lives. We have, a medical system that is doing what it can, but it's missing so much of what is needed on the sensory level, on the emotional level, on the transitional level, mental health. It's not taking care of families in the way that they need to be cared for. And so those of us who, at whatever point in our lives are recognizing this deficiency and saying, I have to work with this population. I have to work with new families. I have to work with new parents who are struggling in the way that I struggled, or I see this person struggling and this isn't right. And how can I help in this situation? So, all of us are part of this call to create greater balance in a place that is out of balance. And while there are so many ways to do that, and I think if we go down into the essence of what this care is, you're absolutely right. It's like filling the dark, empty spaces with love and compassion. And in its essence, that is what we're doing. But we have these beautiful examples and pathways that we can also draw from, such as the Ayurvedic tradition, the yoga tradition, which of course those two are so intricately linked and related. But wherever we are in the world, whatever, background we come from, all over the globe, historically, we see synchronicities and thought and care and healing that we can draw from. But the important thing is that essence of finding the way that resonates with you and helping others who are experiencing that deficiency in that space. And to me, it's just so inspiring to hear how different people are doing that. And I also want to recognize that for those of us who have come to this work because we suffered in our own way, do you feel like there has been healing that's happened for you through being able to learn and explore giving this care to other people?
Oh, definitely. It's, it really comes back to the body. Like when I think back to that time, I spent a lot of time out of my body, or trying to get out of my body, or escaping my body or my feelings or everything that was going on around me. And so that's why, like, I love the word conscious postpartum care, because when we're conscious, we are in our body. And Ayurveda, working with the elements of Ayurveda, really helps us to understand what's going on in our body. And so, yes, like working with others in this capacity really is helping me to heal all of those parts of me in the past that I didn't want to look at, because I'm learning how to be okay in my body while I'm helping others through that as well. And really learning how to tune into what's going on in the body, why the mind is acting a certain way or telling us things, understanding that and being able to witness that in others is, I mean, it's immense healing for me. So yeah, like working with Ayurveda, working with the breath, working with movement. That's why I love Kundalini so much. It's incredibly healing for me. But then being able to share that, being able to help others create that awareness before it goes all the way out there and spends years out there like it did with me. I mean, that's the greatest healing. And for me, it's, and I've mentioned this to you before outside of podcast, but for me, it's like, it's retribution, right? Like I get to give back. I can't go back and change what I experienced or what I went through, but I get to go back and help others avoid going through what I went through. And in that, I'm healing myself as well. And I remember when I learned what Kaya Kalpa was, and in relation to the sacred window, how the first 42 days of postpartum can really impact the next 42 years of the mother's life and the child's life. That hit me like, I mean, it was like a burst of light, just like filling my entire body. I was like, that is so true, because I can see how my anxiety, overwhelm, everything that I experienced at that time is now impacting the time that, you know, my family is going through now. And because I have the awareness now, I can easily and quickly take steps and action to correct it, or, you know, move it into a more loving, compassionate space. But, you know, without the education, there's many people that will be impacted for 42 years after. And we really have an opportunity to change that, like the landscape of those first 42 days, and then the next 42 years of the next generation. It's so important to me.
It's mind blowing. I also feel that, and I think for me it was that lack of information piece. I felt so prepared for motherhood in so many other ways, but
Mm-hmm.
when I realized how much I was struggling and felt like I didn't have any answers or people to draw support from, um, that to me was like, it just felt unjust. Like, how is it
Yeah.
that I don't have access to the information that I need and I'm struggling and feeling this way? And so I
Yeah.
was, birthing my first, in a similar time as you, was before so much information was available, so much online support. I remember MySpace and just not feeling like I had the access. And so part of the mission of doing what we're doing is really just creating places for people to find information. And it's so beautiful to see that there is this really strong vibrating energy on welcoming the acknowledgement of the postpartum window, and really inviting spaces to like look at it and its impact. And I also feel like, for those of you who haven't heard the term Kaya Kalpa, it's really like the sacred window. There's multiple sacred windows in life. One of them is these weeks after birth, where there's incredible opportunity for healing, for almost like a reversal of the aging process, because the things that we do during that window of time, when applied appropriately, it just sort of like supercharge us with the vitality we need to go on parenting and partnering and living and being the
Mm.
best, that we can. And there's also a lot of grief that can come along with, like, recognizing that we missed that we didn't get that because we didn't know. There's a lot of holding space, I find, that collectively we're all doing. But listening to you, and I say this all the time, that it's never too late to create your sacred window. And as long as you have the awareness of how to come back to your body, how to sit with those spaces, how to sit with those qualities, they're qualities, they're not, there's nothing wrong with what we're feeling or experiencing. They're just qualities. And through an
Mhm.
understanding of nature and the elements, we can just shift through our behavior, through our diet, through our routine, through, you know, herbs, whatever's available to us in our space, just shifting those to create the qualities that we do want to experience, whether it's greater patience, more peaceful household, better digestion, better communication, whatever that may be. It is so empowering and so validating to be able to just know how to do that. And it doesn't take that much. It's just that it's not within our general scope of awareness for most of us until we
Yeah.
find it out and have to struggle. Oftentimes, I think that part of our path of learning is that we have to go through something that says, hey, wait a minute, this is not okay. I need to like figure out what's up here. And then the awareness is invited in.
Yeah. Yeah. Those first 42 days, they're also, really, it's a really great window for spiritual growth too. And part of the work that we do is really honoring and witnessing that. Um, and I love that part. It's working with the elements has really taught me to be really grateful, like to find gratitude in even the smallest things, like how things grow and how things move, and how they nourish us, and how capable we are of using those elements for our greater good. And that's what I really love about this work. And it's such a great moment for the mother to learn really how powerful she is. And as caregivers, that's what we get to witness. And, it's not about controlling that person's experience, but it's really about guiding and supporting that experience. And to me, that's really important, because I remember when I first had all my kids, we live in a society where there isn't very much access to help or caregiving. And yeah, the mom is expected to just kind of carry on and get back to, who she was and how things were before pre-baby, but that's not actually the reality. It's just we've accepted that that's the reality, but the reality is we really we really have a great opportunity for spiritual growth. And that's a really good time to slow down and allow nature to really hold you and take care of you. I didn't have that. All of my family, they had to go back to work. I was alone. And then even if I went to a mom group or a play group of some sort, you only see like I don't know how to really explain it, but you see the external, you don't see what's going on internally for each of those other mothers that are going through the exact same experience as you. So it's really important to me to, I don't like kind of like bring back the village, that community feeling of being supported and almost like everyone kind of working together to support the mom so that she can really have this time and really make the most of it, so that she doesn't have to look back on it like I do now and say, oh, I wish I could change it. I did good. I wish I could say that was, the most incredible experience of my life, and I'm powerful and I did good. I can still say that now, but it comes with all the other dark parts that I need to hold and I need to remember and I need to honor.
Hmm. There's like this vibration, I think, in our society that we hold ourselves up to these standards that sort of skip over all the other layers of realness of how
Mhm.
we experience something before we get to that picture on Facebook or that sort of archetype of, the mom who's got it all together. Like we
Yeah.
unconsciously or consciously sort of have these ideals of what success or doing well for us looks like. And there's a missing layer of sort of nurturing and being present and loving all of those other qualities and layers that come before those moments. Because there are those moments where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I did good. I'm doing really good right now and I feel really good. But
Yeah.
what about like loving up all those other real moments? And I think that's where a key piece of a postpartum caregiver can come in, is really helping to like help people stay present, like you said before, like in your body, like really
Yeah.
understanding and loving that we're going to experience all of it. And that's all good. Like all of that is good. Not only this, picture worthy or sort of standard, reaching part is the good part. Like all of it is the real part. And it's all of
Yeah.
that that creates meaning of parenthood. Like this is the hardest job
Yeah.
ever. This
Yeah.
is
And
so
then
hard.
then you get to say like, wow, like I felt all that. I'm strong. Um, I am fierce. I am, divine. Like, I can't believe I did that. I held all of that. And instead of pushing it away and running from it, really learning how to be there, be present, and having the support to do that um, will really help, you know, moms move through all of the emotions and the heightened air and space element that naturally occurs when we have a baby. And when I learned, and I didn't learn until I studied Ayurveda, but when I learned that the air and space element is naturally heightened it's specifically so that the mom can develop a spiritual bond with her baby. I was like, oh, mind blown. But that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And I can't go back and fix that, right? But I can help others understand, like, what's happening to you is normal. It's natural. The universe wants this for you, and you have such a great opportunity to tap into it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that support piece that you mentioned before. Like when we feel supported, then we can let down our guard. We can know that we're
Mhm.
being held, and we can access that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious for you, for I think one thing that's so beautiful about learning about postpartum care in general is that we can create the professional practice, or even just, supporting ourselves or our loved ones. We can emphasize the areas that we feel most resonant with. Like, for example, through yoga and having a greater understanding of postpartum, or some people are really drawn to herbalism, or we create the pathways with carrying this awareness into the way that's
Yeah.
right for you. And so I'm curious, as you are pursuing this path, how do you see that support piece manifesting for you as you bring this awareness into the world to support other people?
For me, I know there's so many ways that I can work with it. Um, but for me, I want to get really down to the energetics of it all. Um, and the somatics of it. So really helping women understand and tune into what's happening in their body. I really want to be that outlet, I guess you could say, because I think I can hold it. um, but what I really needed someone to just kind of like talk to me and guide me, um, and give me or suggest to me new ways of doing things. So I'm going to be, when I move into this practice professionally, there's going to be a lot of movement and breath work. I mean, that can be a whole other podcast, but breath work is essential in my life now. And I think every mom needs to know how to use their breath to really come back to their body. So I'll be working a lot with um, grounding techniques, breathing techniques, movement techniques to help move stagnant and stale energy. And then just really being that supportive rock that I needed so deeply. And it's nobody's fault, society just has this idea of what it looks like after you have a baby. And everyone had to go back to work. So I was, alone. And I want to be that rock, that thing that I needed to go to or to speak to when I was in those moments of my life.
Hmm. Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's
Thank
really exciting to know that more and more people are out there holding space for new families. And I think together we're all making a massive difference in the experiences that people are going to have as they ease through this transition that's really unavoidable. I always want to acknowledge too that when we come into this work as caregivers, it's not our job to make it easy for someone. It's
you.
not our
Mhm.
job to fix all of the issues that will come up, or the, circumstances. It's not what it's about. It's being able to navigate those things with greater ease so that we can digest our birth and postpartum experiences as positive, as loving, as compassionate, which sets us up for doing the best we can as mothers, as parents, as humans.
Yeah.
It's just really beautiful to me to listen to you and your commitment to this work.
Yeah. And I think, it's, we, there's a lot of work to do to change the landscape, but I think it's really the most important work that we can do, because we can really shift society for the better with more love and more compassion. And I think that that's really it comes back to that, like awareness, love, and compassion. The world needs more of it.
Yes.
That we get the opportunity to, really impact the beginning of life with that energy. So it's a big deal. It's a really big deal to me.
The biggest deal. It's the
Yeah.
biggest deal. And to know that as more and more people experience a supportive postpartum window, it gets passed on to the next generations that come ahead.
Yeah. It's like a ripple effect, and it's important. It's the village that we're all kind of craving in our hearts. Like we all want to go back to that, like that village, that community feeling that we're all kind of missing. And I think that's another topic that we could talk about another day.
Yes, we clearly we have a series here.
Yeah, I think we've got 3 now on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be in community with you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been an honor being here, and thank you so much for having me here and having this conversation with me today. I really enjoyed it.
me too. And for
Yeah.
those of you listening, thank you so much for the love and the compassion and the awareness that you are spreading in your communities. And please research more about Stephanie with her info. She has a beautiful Instagram presence, and she's just someone you'll want to be connected with. So thank you to all. And until the next episode of our series, Stephanie, I think I'm going to make it happen for us.
Yay, sounds good.
Be well, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.